The Zodiac Killer is widely remembered as a criminal mastermind, but the case files suggest he was an offender who successfully exploited the systemic blind spots of a fractured 1960s police system. If we look past the legend at the confirmed record, his activity was concentrated. Over a 10-month period, he committed 5 confirmed murders and left 2 survivors. The first attack occurred on December 20, 1968, at Lake Herman Road. It was an isolated gravel turnout, a local lover's lane. David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen were parked there on their first date when a gunman approached in the dark and killed them both in a sudden, unprovoked ambush. There were no ciphers or cryptic signatures left at this scene. The killer struck in the dark, left 10.22 caliber shell casings on the frozen dirt, and disappeared without leaving a single trace of his identity. 6 months later, on the 4th of July, 1969, the violence escalated at Blue Rock Springs. But this time, 19-year-old Michael McGow survived to tell his story. McGow described a specific tactic. The killer approached their parked car and aimed a bright flashlight directly into their eyes. Blinded and unable to see a weapon, McGow and his companion, Darlene Ferrin, were helpless as the shooter opened fire. These first 2 attacks happened just miles apart, but fell under 2 separate police jurisdictions, Benicia and Vallejo. In 1969, law enforcement lacked computerized shared databases. Clues gathered in one town often stayed there, trapped behind bureaucratic boundaries. This information gap meant the killer could cross a county line and effectively reset the investigation, staying ahead of police departments not yet equipped to share full case files in real time. In July 1969, the killer shifted his strategy. He began mailing cryptograms to the city's major newspapers, threatening to kill more victims if they didn't publish his letters on the front page. Analytical, the Z340 cipher was built with a specific structural trick. It required a diagonal transposition reading pattern, moving down 1 row and over 2 spaces. This encryption method kept the message unsolved for 51 years. When it was finally cracked in 2020, the decoded text revealed a rant about collecting slaves for the afterlife. It was a message that pointed toward a motive rooted in fantasy rather than professional calculation. That fantasy became theatrical on September 27, 1969, at Lake Berryessa, where college students Cecilia Shepard and Brian Hartnell were picnicking. Hartnell described a daylight attack by a man wearing a homemade executioner's hood. After a calm, rehearsed conversation about being an escaped convict, the man bound the couple and stabbed them both. Shepard died 2 days later. The Berryessa attack, defined by a specific costume and a pre-planned script, suggests the Zodiac was staging a performance for his own gratification. 2 weeks later, the killer entered the city. In the residential Presidio Heights neighborhood, he shot taxi driver Paul Stein at point-blank range. A dispatcher error immediately following the shooting broadcast the suspect as a black male instead of a white male. This allowed a man matching the Zodiac's description to walk right past responding officers unchallenged. The errors continued once the taxi was secured. Inside the cab, investigators inadvertently destroyed bloody latent prints by using the wrong forensic solvent for the surfaces they were processing. The killer mailed a piece of Paul Stein's blood-stained shirt to the press as a trophy, but the way the swatch was handled by reporters and police further degraded the biological evidence. The killer escaped the Presidio Heights neighborhood because dispatcher errors and botched forensic processing destroyed the 2 best chances of capturing him. Investigative failures left police with circumstantial leads. For years, the prime suspect was Arthur Leigh Allen. He lived in Vallejo, wore a size 10.5 military boot, and even wore a wristwatch branded with the Circle Cross Zodiac logo. This chart contrasts those suspicions with the hard data. A partial DNA profile pulled from the stamps on the Zodiac's letters did not match Arthur Leigh Allen. His fingerprints were also a mismatch for the prints recovered from the Stein taxi. Despite these exclusions, the case has generated a steady stream of alternative suspects like Gary Poste. These claims often rely on confirmation bias, interpreting scars in police sketches or forcing anagrams to fit a specific name, conclusions that the FBI and forensic evidence reject. The Zodiac case remains open because the persona the killer manufactured successfully outlasted the physical evidence he left behind. Modern forensic genetic genealogy is now the most viable path forward. It is the only tool capable of looking past the legend to find specific biological markers of the man underneath the hood.